All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Woo! So this is the part of the evening that we all enjoy the most. It's actually getting to know a couple of folks in the industry. It's an opportunity for you to come up with some great questions at the end. Just for the panelists' sake, we also are sharing upstairs, so you can also look in the camera and wave, say hi to the guys upstairs. They are seeing you. And I would just first and foremost like to thank everyone for coming. And I'd like to introduce our panelists. So let's just start with Abby, who is the CTO and, of course, the founder of CrowdRiff. They're an AI-powered visual content marketing platform.
Lots of buzzwords.
Yeah, platform, and they're purpose-built for the travel industry. Now, Abby will get into a lot greater detail. And of course, we have John from G Adventures. He's the VP of Global Technology. Louder? No. Yeah? Okay. All right, we'll do it louder. Hopefully I won't lose my voice, but we'll go from there. So thanks very much, guys, for joining. If you could just, maybe, John, if you could start and just give us an idea of, how you ended up here at G Adventures. Obviously, you've got an interesting tech background, and now you're leading a team in a very prominent tour operation, G Adventures, and we'd love to know how you got here and just some of the experiences you had on that journey.
Sure, yeah. So hopefully you can all hear me up there. I hopefully don't have to yell any louder than this. So I've been at G Adventures for 7 years now. And I actually don't have a degree in any sort of technical background. My degree is actually in biochemistry. My passion has always been in development. And I was just very fortunate in my university where I was able to mix the two and get into a field called bioinformatics. From there, I actually was part of several startups here in Toronto during the heyday where it was, money was just flying for biotech. That didn't last too long. .com hit, everything blew up, and I was, again, very fortunate to be able to switch and into more development rather than science with development. And what actually brought me here, so it's always been startups, and on the last startup that I was in, which was just down the street, I got a LinkedIn message from Bruce. And so Bruce is the founder of G Adventures, and it went something like, I'm looking for someone to head up our software department, are you interested? And it was his avatar's like Beaker, like out of the Muppets, and I'm like, I think this is a joke. But serendipitously, it just worked out. He was right down the street from me. I said, if you want to meet up for coffee, let's do it, and I'd love to hear about the opportunity. And that same day, within an hour, I was meeting at the Hyatt Starbucks, having coffee with him, and here I am now. So it just kind of worked out.
Excellent. Very cool story. Abby, we'd love to know just sort of your journey that got you to founding CrowdRiff. So like, how did you get there?
Sure. So it was 100% an accident. Didn't realize I'd be founding a company. Didn't intend to. I just wanted to do software dev right out of school. So my co-founder Dan and I, we're product people. We love building products. So over the last 8 years or so, we've probably built about 30 or 32 products, which is a lot. Not all of them worked, obviously. And we've tried everything from kind of $10 a month Twitter analytics dashboard to the very enterprise kind of Fox TV and Netflix consulting gigs, and ended up somewhere in the sweet spot in the middle serving SMBs. Travel is a pure accident. It just so happens that our product fits really well for the travel industry, and a lot of the DMOs fall into that SMB bucket. So,
sorry, you're just using a few acronyms, maybe just for the crowd.
SMB is small to medium business, and I
The
think
DMO.
DMO is the Destination Marketing Organization. So an organization responsible for bringing people to a geography. Like Toronto, Ontario has one, and Canada has a nationwide one as well.
Excellent. Just a show of hands, like how many travel tech people are in the crowd right now that are sort of working in the space? And how many, in the show of hands, are companies looking to hire travel tech people? Very cool, very cool. Well, while you have the mic, Abby, could you just let us know a little bit how you became, your definition of your company is saying it's purpose-built for the travel industry. You didn't probably just fall on DMOs at first, and it's your focus. I thought it was really cool. So, how did you sort of line into that?
Yeah, so our product can be applied to any vertical, but I think about a year or so ago, we decided to settle and kind of make our home in travel, which was really freeing from a product development perspective, because now we can do a whole bunch of stuff that excludes all the other verticals. And we just realized, I think Max mentioned a stat earlier, that travel is big enough to build a really big company. So yeah, that's how we ended up here.
Very cool. John, could you just tell us a little bit about the G-Tech team, and how many people have you that you have working for you, and how it's made up, and what they're focused on?
Sure. So we're a team right now of 56 people, a bit globally dispersed, especially our IT team. So we have 5 main pillars. We have our customer systems. They focus on our B2B website, our B2C website, so gadventures.com, our mobile app. We have our operational system, so that's everything to do with the tour leaders, which we call CEOs, Chief Experience Officers. So we operate, as you heard earlier, all over, so over 700 different tours in over 100 different countries, all 7 continents. So there's a lot of tour leaders or CEOs that we need to manage, and that's what our operational systems is focused on. We have our business systems, and that's everything from financial systems, our CRM, all the stuff that some people find boring, but is absolutely necessary to run a company. And then we have IT, which is all making all of this work, the computers, the networking, and so we have 26 offices all over the world. We're responsible for all of those. So in a nutshell, anything that is technology at G Adventures goes through this team. So it's a pretty big remit, but a lot of fun. It's what keeps it interesting.
So John, what would you say is the biggest difference from your past experience to now, working in technology that makes travel different than what you've done in your past life?
So I think the biggest difference, and I'll focus first on the type. So before it was all startups, and the startups were all actual technology companies, right, focused on serving a particular industry. So this is the first time that I was coming into an organization. It was 24 years or 23 years old at the time, still acting like a startup, which is incredible. But its main product wasn't technology. Its main product was tours. So that's a very, very different thing, right? So when we need to operate to facilitate these amazing experiences in destination, all the technology that's necessary to do that end-to-end across the entire customer journey. Whereas before, the sole focus, and that's so much easier, I can't tell you, the sole focus was just providing a piece of software that was serving a particular need for the industry. So it's very, very different in terms of that type of experience. So that's just paralleling my experience from before to this. In terms of travel itself and being in technology and travel, I've always loved traveling, so it's fusing. And there's very few people that I've met who don't like traveling. Usually they're really grumpy, shitty people. But those who, so travel is like something, anytime you talk about travel, people have a big smile on their face, right? Because it brings back memories. And to be able to fuse what I do from, what I love to do in a job and what I love to do in my personal life is just amazing. So, and to be able to bring that happiness to as many people as we can possibly bring it to is really fulfilling.
Abhi, is a travel tech team different from a regular tech team in your opinion?
No, I think the tech aspect is pretty much the same. It's the application of it and the impact that you can have as a travel tech developer. For example, we're working on some pretty exciting projects with airlines that could help change how airlines help people dream about where to get to next. So having the chance to work on something with such a large impact, I think, is the difference.
I think there's a few airlines in the crowd. Would you like to go a little deeper in that, or is that a trade secret right now?
I don't know if I can talk about that.
It sounds pretty exciting. This is a question that I'm excited to ask. It's very general, but it's the reason why we formed this meeting today. Is what makes the travel industry great? And I'll open it to either of you or both of you.
So I think you've heard both of us allude to the impact that we can have. It's our core ethos that travel is the best way to distribute wealth to countries around the world. A lot of people who are traveling, they're traveling from richer countries to these to lower income or countries that don't have as much as we do. And when you travel in an appropriate in a way the way that we do, where most of the money stays in destination, you can really have an amazing impact on the people that you're visiting. We employ people in from the actual country, so it's not our CEOs aren't coming from Canada and flying with you. We're hiring, if you're going to Thailand, you're going to be interacting with a Thai CEO. So we're creating jobs there. You just by the mere act of going on that vacation, you're actually helping out that economy. And I think that's the biggest impact that we can have on travel. It also, in a day and age of where we're becoming more and more intolerant, it allows us to become more tolerant, experiencing all of these different cultures. So it's just, I wish everyone could travel.
Yeah, to echo that sentiment, I think well-traveled people are often well-rounded people, and so we enjoy the fact that we can help people travel and help them figure out where to go to next. Another thing I'd say is generally people in the travel industry are just very happy people, and it's just a great group of people to work with. So it's great when your customer isn't grumpy, as you mentioned. It just creates a better customer experience. It makes it easier to make their lives easier.
Yeah, I call it the douchebag ratio. I've worked in a few other industries, and it's not so good to necessarily be there. I didn't make so many friends, but in travel, definitely the douchebag ratio is very, very minimal. So it is definitely a cool industry. Well, here's a little. Let's put a little bit of a gray cloud over the talk here. Rumor has it that travel isn't as lucrative as other tech opportunities out there. A, is that true? And B, like, you know, why should a developer, outside of all these great things that we just talked about, why should a developer jump on something where they could actually make more money somewhere else?
I wouldn't say it's not lucrative. I think we have to pay market rate to be competitive, but it's not like we're going to be outbidding a PagerDuty. We're a startup. We have to kind of live within our means. The thing that we can offer that other people can't is the types of problems that you work on, the kinds of data that you can access, and our tech. I think that trio has been working well for us in terms of the kinds of people that we attract and would like to retain.
So yeah, we have to deal with this all the time, this sort of question. And as I said before, our main product is not a technology product, right? Our main product is a tour product. And whether you like it or not, tour products don't have the same kind of margins that a technology product will have, right? It's night and day difference if you look at their actual P&L. So we don't have as much money to be able to hire the top talent and compete with the top. The difference, though, is that it's being part of something that's really bigger than yourself, something that has purpose behind it. And if that's the stage, like what we find is that a lot of students just coming out of school, they're they're more chasing that sort of money, and they haven't had that experience of being in a high douchebag ratio company. But once they've had that experience, they actually start realizing, oh wait, there's something more to just making as much money as I can make. There's something to be said about the work that I do actually is going to a greater purpose. And I think that's why, like, we do have a very good retention rate at G Adventures. And I think the reason why is that we're actually able to fulfill that passion and purpose that people are looking for. You can make a lot of money and still be unhappy. So that's really what it's about.
Very cool. What about technology? You know, is the travel industry at the forefront of technology, or is it kind of, you know, I've heard it's 10 years behind. And, you know, and the second part of this question is there an opportunity for technologists to kind of come in with experience from another industry and just kill it? Or is this just an opportunity, or really is this an opportunity that you could be at the forefront of technology and do something really cool and different that no one else is doing in any other industry?
So I think it's a mixed bag. You saw this morning, earlier today, it already feels like a whole day has gone by. There was a presentation, they showed Sabre, right? And you think airlines are old, blah, blah, blah. They have old technology. But I'll tell you, airlines are in red ocean, right? So they have to compete. And some of the most advanced stuff that's happening right now are in the air and hotel space. Because if they're not innovating, they're dying. So it's really interesting to see some of the conferences that I go to. So you look at us, it's tour. Tour is a very small niche of like air and hotel. But when I look at the journey that they've gone through, the airline and hotel industry, we're just behind. We're over here. We're still going to experience everything that they've experienced in that. And they used to be blue ocean. They're now red ocean. We're going to go through the same thing. So there's a lot to be learned there. And travel is so big. So you look at that, but then you look at Airbnb. They're a technology company selling travel. So is there innovation there? Is there disruption? We just saw some disruption today. I've never seen anything like that for insurance. That's exciting. So there's if you're not innovating, if any company isn't innovating in any space, then they will not succeed in the long term. So I think there is. It's not so much the industry, but it's targeting those companies that invest in innovation and technology.
Very cool.
I had the same two examples. I was going to talk about GDSs and Airbnb, and you kind of took that out. No worries. To reiterate on the Airbnb piece, I think they're really, really killing it in terms of what they're thinking is the next big thing, which is going to be story formats. I think just telling stories in that story format is where Airbnb's next big punch is coming for the travel industry. We've also seen a lot of trouble with kind of OTAs trying to innovate. Like you said, the competition is so high, and that's where people like us come in, and we're trying to help airlines, hotel lines, and cruise lines innovate and get ahead of their competition.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't realize, there's so many facets to the travel industry. You know, obviously you kind of break it out with flights and hotels, and of course, I was mentioning to you, John, like, you know, when I was down in Focusrite when 2-3 years ago, we were saying, oh, you know, are you in a flight company? Are you in a tour company? Or sorry, in a hotel company? I'd say, no, we're in multi-day tours, and they're like, multi-day what? Never heard of it. And what was it you were saying, John? With like
the first multi-day tour was Moses saying, follow me.
Yeah, that was, so like tours have been happening for 3,000 years is basically, is quite precise. So, but in the technology world, it is kind of new, and there's a lot of interesting things going on. Abhi, I don't know if you recall in our call, you were talking about, I can't remember the name of the company, but there was a hotel company that was kind of mirroring sort of what's going on at your home. If you could elaborate on that, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so the example was from Hilton Hotels, and what they've been able to do is get about 3,500 hotel properties on the same infrastructure, which apparently is an achievement in itself, because hotel owners don't like to be told what to do. And out of that, 2,500 of them have kind of a app-based check-in where you don't talk to a person, you just check in on the app and that becomes your key, which if done improperly could be disastrous, but they've been able to do it okay so far. But what really got me is what they said was coming next. They said they're going to try and make the in-room experience exactly like your home. So there might be an Alexa in the room, and that Alexa would be the same Alexa that's in your house because it knows who you are. You would sign in with Amazon or do some sort of integration.
Yes, she is watching you.
And then with that, they'd be able to control and even customize what the media available to you in the room is. So basically, the idea is that you're traveling with your home, which is kind of great and weird in a way.
Sounds awesome. No. Very cool, very cool. What would you say, someone just starting out, besides coming down the slide and saying they're ready to work, which is actually an amazing way to do it, what should someone do that's wants to be in technology, wants to be in travel? How should they get noticed and get into this great industry we're talking about?
I won't speak for the industry, but for CrowdRiff, what we look for is primarily three things. One, you're really good at what you do, kind of given your proportionate experience. Two, you have a demonstrated kind of history of learning. We're really big on learning. I think all of the people we've gathered just happen to be that way. They love learning. We have weekly sessions where people teach other people stuff that they know, and it's creatively named Learn Some Stuff. Anybody can attend, anybody can present. And the last one is just be kind, because that's part of our values. We look for kind and decent human beings.
No douchebags.
So it just begins with applying. So first, figure out the kind of company that you want to be a part of. Who here is on LinkedIn? Do people still use LinkedIn? Okay, good. So creep people, creep them, find out who they are, and then just reach out. And don't reach out with like just the standard message that LinkedIn gives you. Like actually, in as small amount of characters as possible, describe who you are and what you're looking for. So there was a question earlier, how many people are looking for developers in the travel space? There was quite a number of hands that just went up, right? So we're all looking. So eventually you will land that position with a company that works with your set of values and that's interesting to you. So I don't know if we need to go in any further than that in terms of what we look at.
Well, it's kind of my next question, and it'll probably lead to where you were thinking about answering. But generally, if you have a candidate that's in front of you and is a technological wizard, but it might not be the cultural fit you're looking at, but you know that this person is going to kill on the tech side. What choices? What are your choices at that point? How do you decide if you're going to hire that person or not?
So if they're a tech wizard but not a cultural fit, we have no choice. So we do not hire them. So the process that we go through, and this is not just for technology, this is for any person at any level, any department, it doesn't matter. You're going to go through the technical interviews, all of the stuff at the beginning, phone interview, technical interview, and then we have one specific interview called a culture fit interview. And that culture fit interview comprises of, I think, 3 or 4 people from various departments in the organization. It changes up, and we're just trying to weed out those douchebags. We're trying to weed out, and I'll use a different term. On one end of the spectrum, we have those people who are brilliant jerks. They're amazing, but they're just not fun to interact with, and that ruins an environment very quickly, especially the higher up you go. Like people managers can really ruin culture if you have a brilliant jerk. On the other end of the spectrum is our culture vultures. So those are the people who are just in it because of this, right? They just want to slide down all day and eat popcorn. Right? And they're really sociable, they bleed purple, but that also doesn't work for us. So we need that balance in between, and that's what we look for.
How about you, Abby? You formed a team of about 65 individuals. What kind of a culture are you creating, and how important is the culture at your company?
Because we're not as mature as G in terms of org, we don't have values per se, but we're working on that. Even though we're at 65, I think it's very important to crystallize the values right away so that you can use them in the interview process as well as evaluations throughout the years. But one of the things I'd like to elaborate on is I think it's important to have a culture fit, but not too much of a culture fit, to be open to individuals who might be different from you, but they're not jerks. So you don't get too much of a monoculture.
Culture add is now the term that is being used. Okay. Just to that point.
Very cool. I like it. Let's just switch it up a little bit. What advice do you guys have for travel tech startups? Like, if you were to do it all over again, regardless of the idea, what advice would you give this your future self or your present self starting this new business?
Ooh, travel is huge. It's way bigger than you think. I think if you're trying to start a new business, I would identify the customer and be ruthless about testing your product ideas. There's so many travel businesses here in Toronto, one of them has to be part of the target market. Just walk over to them, talk to them, they will be more than happy. Like I've said, they're very, very happy people, and they'll be more than happy to help you out.
So very good question and hard question. I think if I were to boil it down to the simplest, is find a problem, and it doesn't have to be a big problem. It can be a very small problem, and there are many of them in the travel space, and fix that problem, right? So typically the problems that you're trying to fix are just ease for the customer. People are now starting to get to a point where they just want things easy. They don't want to have to think so much. There's a reason why light bulbs went off when I saw that insurance, because who here books insurance and likes it and thinks it's easy, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So all I have to do is slide a button and it works. Like that's the kind of thing. Now that's a bigger problem, and taking on insurance is a pretty big problem. But there are so many micro problems out there along that customer journey. If you think about when a customer first thinks to themselves, I want to go on vacation, right? I want to take this money and take 2 weeks or a week out of my time, my precious time, and go with a company, and then follow that entire journey to them coming back home being satisfied. There's a ton of space in there where there's problems that you can identify to make it easier for the company. And that's quite honestly what we do, right? Like what G Adventures is always doing is trying to make it as easy as possible. That's what Uber does. That's what Airbnb does. Right? They don't even own the product, and they're just trying to make it as easy as possible end to end.
Well, thanks, guys. I'd like to open it up to the floor now. I'm sure there's some great questions. Maybe we can just get a runner with the mic. Here, Max, that'd be great.
Hello. Okay. Great job, guys. That was awesome. This is a question for Abby. I'm curious what you feel is CrowdRiff's biggest accomplishment.
I'd say retaining 400 happy customers across 20 countries. That's way harder than it seems.
Good answer.
Awesome job, guys. This is a question for Abby. It might be more technical. Wondering where you get your content from, and if it is from people, how do you get around the whole attribution thing in Creative Commons licenses?
That's a good question. So we source content from Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And based on the usage patterns, there are certain ways that you can use the content if you follow their display guidelines in certain ways. But you can't use that content for commercial purposes. So if you were to print it or run an ad with it, you'd need explicit rights from the author, and we facilitate that process.
All right, we got a question from the dead zone up here. Greetings from the dead zone.
Hi, Dead Zone.
I just had a question when you were talking about the lucrativity of the travel industry. Do you think that is down to a lack of opportunity or more of a lack of innovation?
So that's a stumper of a question. I don't think it's either, and I actually think it's a bit of a misnomer to say that that it can't be lucrative. So I truly believe that for an individual, if you're really good at what you do, the money will come, right? And again, the travel industry is massive. It's a massive, massive industry. So I think that it can be very lucrative for travel companies, for technology companies that sell travel. That's because their margins are higher. It's just harder when you're a tour company, for example, and to compete with companies that have such high margins. So that's I think it is a bit of a misnomer, and I don't think that it has anything to do with a lack of opportunity or innovation. I think the innovation is there, and as companies innovate, they find ways to increase their margin, which allows them to pay more, which then spreads the wealth around.
Yeah, no, I would agree with John. There's massive amounts of opportunity. I think in sometimes in the past, travel companies have been able to pay people less because they offer such a great lifestyle. You know, that you get free travel, and it's just been an attractive package. You just don't have to necessarily offer as big a salary. I know. I used to be in the luxury car industry, and people would drive around free BMWs and be paid much lower than someone who could afford a BMW. And for them, it was a huge advantage, and they knew that they could, by handing out these cars, which was cheap for them, they attracted those people. But I think with technology, that's transforming quite a bit, because in order for travel tech companies to compete, or regular travel companies to be innovative, they need the smartest people to make these amazing things happen, like that hotel example. You can't just pawn off and say, well, we're a travel company, we'll give them a free trip, but yeah, make us this amazing AI innovation to our company. So I think if it's not already changing, it's going to change.
Hi, this is Sajid here from Live Assets. So I just want to ask, what do you, both of you, think is one challenge in identifying the right talent? You would say this is a niche industry?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, so you would say that this is a travel tech is a niche industry, right? Niche.
Travel tech itself?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
So in terms of identifying talent, what one challenge that both of you might have?
Quite honestly, it's just finding enough. So we're in Toronto right now, right? Toronto is now grown to be an extremely tech heavy city. So I think there was an article just recently in Bloomberg, like last week, that said that we've outpaced San Francisco. Like that's freaking crazy, right? When you think of that. And so we're obviously, as a city, we're doing something right. So amazing. But that just means that the competition is fierce for people, because without people, you can't do anything. So it's the hardest part of all of this is just attracting people, and you attract people with what you do, the culture you have, the different packages, like the free travel, the benefits, all of that. It's the total package. That's how you're trying to attract people. But lots of other companies are doing that too. So it's as simple as, what's the hardest part? Finding people.
There's a few hands down here.
I just had a follow-up question for Abby. You mentioned that if it's not for commercial purposes, you can use it, but you're selling, from what I understand, you do sell the content to other enterprise solutions. And my second question is that, do you guys work with startups? And if you do, can we connect after the event is done?
So, absolutely, yeah, let's talk after. We don't sell the content. We provide a way for our customers to discover the content that's being posted by their consumers about their brand.
Another one up here.
Okay, thanks. Hey, John. First of all, thanks for having us here. It's a really great event. And I know G Adventures' goal is always to make a really seamless experience for the customer to get from point A to point B. But with your experience when it comes to connecting G Adventures' platform to other industries, which industries would you say would be more closed compared to ones that would be really open, or are they all closed?
So when you're talking about industries, do you mean like in travel, like from our? Yeah. So it is suppliers really. It's so. Remember again, back to what we try to do is ensure that we have experiences that are local to the destination. So if they're local to the destination, you're talking about some small mom and pop type shops that that they're not on any platform. So there's not one. The hardest thing for us is that everything there has to be manually entered into our system. So we have to enter that information in so that we know what's going on a tour, we know how much it's gonna cost, etc., where to go, all of that kind of information. That's not easy, right? When you're operating in that many countries. So if there was like one, and this is almost the holy grail, right? So I know you're doing it for buses, but what? That's not a plug. But if there were companies, and like if you Viator, all of those companies, they're trying to get those like those micro experiences, right? They're trying to amalgamate all of that, but there's no one who's doing it like truly en masse, right? That's a hard problem to solve. So it's been solved for hotels for the most part, airlines for the most part, but when you're looking at activities, that's hard. We don't have anything like that right now.
All right, we got another question from up top.
A lot of the talk tonight has been about developing countries and higher per capita spend. For your developing countries, maybe China or India, that have lower per capita spend, how do we tap into that potential and help a family that only has $100 but go on a holiday, so it's a win-win? You guys are able to make a sale, they're able to go on a holiday. What's the keys to tapping into the lower spend in developing countries?
I think that's you, John.
Good question. So if I were to reiterate that question, it's how do we create tours that are cheap enough for others to be able to travel? Is that correct?
How do you open up that market generally? I didn't ask the question. But that's
Can I play the tech guy card here? I don't know. That's if I knew that answer, I would tell you we'd be doing it, because that's huge, right? To be able to do that, you need to basically be able to streamline that supply chain to the point where it's affordable for anyone. So the other way to look at it is how can we look at innovative ideas probably within the financing space to fund that so that people can go. That's something that I hear quite often. I've even heard it tonight. But how can we provide financing for people to open up that opportunity that they may not have had before?
Maybe that's what touring does, right? You inject cash into the local economies and then allow them to be able to afford the same type of tours that we can afford.
That's a better answer.
I don't want to take anyone's thunder.
What do you view from a consumer's perspective as the weakest link in a traveler's experience?
So from our perspective, it's the preparation phase. So there's this amazing thing that happens when you book a G Adventures, and maybe it's just in the name adventure. They're like, holy shit, I just bought a G Adventures and I'm going on a tour, right? And so you never do that, like, holy shit, I just bought a cruise and I'm going on a cruise. There's no like apprehension there, or at least as much as we see for our passengers. And really what I think we're not doing well and what we are focusing on at this point is how to prepare that customer. So not almost to the point where you can anticipate what they're going to worry about next and be able to provide that so that you have a much more seamless experience for them before they ever get on tour. So I think there's a big opportunity there to make a traveler feel safe before they've ever stepped on a plane.
I think we have maybe time for one more if there is.
Yeah, anyone else?
Oh. So my question goes to John. I'm curious as to how you see airlines evolving. So for example, I'm from Europe, so we have a lot of low-cost airlines. Even in North America, you see a few airlines that do London, anywhere in Canada for like $300. As a company that books tours, do you ever look at particular airlines and think that you could maybe do some work with them, like Iceland Air, that sponsor your stay in Iceland?
So Iceland is a really, really great example. But so that was actually an initiative from the country itself, right? So they're the ones who, from a tourism board perspective, said, we want more tourism. So we're going to make it dead cheap to fly to Iceland. Now, once you land there, the price of food is the price of your ticket. Really. It's just ridiculous how much it costs. But that's the way that a lot of travel companies can work. What we look at is if we know that there's a hot destination that we'd like to get into and that the flight cost is prohibitive and we know that there's a path, if you can show that there are a lot of people that you can move, then you can actually work with airlines in order to bring that down.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, and a big round of applause for John and Abby. Also, a big round of applause. This beautiful venue, it's absolutely stunning, and I think we all enjoyed the slide. And if you haven't, please do. Just moving on, so if you want to get involved with TechTO or TravelTechTO, we're always looking for speakers, volunteers, and sponsors. So please take down this email and email Ashley or find her here. And the guys in the navy blue shirts with the TechTO, those are the people that tap too. So next event is going to be Monday, November 12th. We've got a $20 early bird special. Isn't that exciting? And just go to TravelTechTO.org, and we will let you know what the subject will be as soon as we can. Thanks very much.